Chinese President Xi Jinping has successfully cemented his name in Chinese history. The Chinese Communist Party has passed a crucial resolution by the president which puts him on par with Mao and paves way for a legacy-defining third term. What is this resolution about? Essentially, the resolution pitches Xi Jinping's vision for China while invoking the country's past. But more importantly, it sets the stage for next year's sweeping leadership reshuffle, paving way for Xi to tighten his grip on power.
The plenary session called upon the party organizations at all levels and the entire party membership to rally more closely around the Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core to surmount difficulties, forge ahead so as to make new and greater contributions toward building a modern socialist country in all respects, securing great success for socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era and realizing the great national rejuvenation, and to ensure that excellent results are achieved by the time the 20th CPC National Congress is convened.
The key plenary involving senior leaders of the Communist Party established Xi as the uncontested leader of China. The resolution titled Major Achievements and Historical Experience of the Party's Centennial Struggle was the third of its kind in China's 100-year history. Mao Zedong, the founder of the CCP, put forth the first such resolution in 1945, whereas Deng Xiaoping issued another one later in 1981. According to analysts, the resolution sets in stone Xi Jinping's vision for China, one that rewrites the past in order to shape the future around Xi Jinping. Next autumn, the CCP will hold its 20th Party Congress, at which Xi Jinping is widely expected to be handed a third term in office, securing his position as China's most powerful leader since Mao. But his tenure has been marked by a sprawling anti-corruption crackdown, repressive policies in regions like Xinjiang, Tibet and Hong Kong, an increasingly assertive approach to foreign relations, which includes territorial aggression with neighboring countries such as India. For more on this plenary session and this news development, we are now being joined by Ross Feingold. He is a political risk analyst based in Taiwan. Thanks for joining us, Ross. Welcome to WION. The Chinese president has essentially cemented his name in history, in Chinese history. That has been the biggest outcome of this plenum. How will this affect Taiwan given China's military aggression towards the island?
Well, this meeting or this resolution by itself, I don't think it changes much from the perspective of the government or the people here, simply because they know who they're dealing with, which is Xi Jinping. Whether or not there's a resolution at a party meeting doesn't really change the fact that Xi Jinping is the leader of the party, he's the leader of the government, he's the leader of the military, and he really sets the policy direction as of now. And as you mentioned, it looks like he's going to be doing so into a third term, so for a number of years to come. So that means that the government, the military, and other stakeholders here in Taiwan need to do what's necessary to prepare for the reality that the current policies of China look set to be the policies into the future.
Right. Now, Ross, will we also see a more aggressive China going forward with President Xi, of course, at the helm, especially towards its neighbors and the U.S. in particular? We know that President Biden and Xi are likely to meet virtually next week. So let's talk about that now.
The steps that China has taken on its periphery, whether that's domestically, and you mentioned some of those regions, or externally, you mentioned some of those regions as well, including India and Taiwan, it's a pattern. And as part of maintaining or strengthening his leadership over these past 10 years and going into the future, we've seen step-by-step and continued actions, whether that's investment in the military or deployment of the military or other types of legal actions, changing laws, for example, in Hong Kong. So these things are going to continue. Again, one meeting, one resolution doesn't change that, and nor would the virtual summit with Joe Biden change that. We have to be frank. There's really nothing Joe Biden, President Biden's going to say to Xi Jinping that would cause Xi Jinping to say, oh, we're going to change our policies. You're absolutely right, Mr. President. We were wrong. So that's not a realistic possibility. What is a possibility, but I think people are rightly skeptical, is if Joe Biden is going to take significant actions to change U.S. policy. So what we've seen with the Biden administration is maintenance of some of the Trump administration policies, especially on a lot of the tariffs and other trade issues. Cooperation with allies here in the Indo-Pacific region is maintained. But certainly the trajectory that we saw with the Trump administration, that's not been maintained, no matter how much the Biden administration tries to say that it is. And we know that the Biden administration did want to cooperate with China on certain issues, such as climate. We saw that in recent days with the joint statement at COP26. Clearly, the Biden administration still hopes for cooperation with China on the question of Iran's nuclear weapons or energy program. This summit by itself, I would expect both sides to say their standard talking points, which for the U.S. side, whether in the meeting or after the meeting, it still includes this element of, yes, we compete, but we still hope to cooperate.
Right. Ross, my final question for you. You already laid out some of these points for us. Talking specifically about the US-China relationship going forward ahead of this virtual summit, we've spoken about the fact that there are several issues between the two nations, be it trade, the sources of the pandemic, and of course Taiwan. The US support for Taiwan is a big sticking point for China. How will this change the US-China relationship going forward?
It's such an important question, especially given the actions we've seen by China, including military exercises, flights into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, although we should keep in mind part of that zone does overlap with Chinese airspace. There's some dispute about how aggressive that action is. But by the number of aircraft that China's flown, of course, Taiwan has reason to be concerned. So again, we're probably not going to see the same trajectory that we saw under the Trump administration. So the frequency of weapon sales, for example, the high-level visits. We haven't seen a cabinet level ministerial level official from the Biden administration visit Taiwan yet, the way we saw in the final year of the Trump administration. So there are little things like that where the Biden administration still seems to be pulling back from what the Trump administration did or what a second Trump administration would have done. And I think, again, skeptics or critics have good reason to question the Biden administration's policies.
Right. Ross Feingold, thank you so much for all your insights, and thank you for joining us on WION World is One at this hour. WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.